So you see today's topic, but let's start with a different approach. So let's not start discussing AWS Lambda straight away. Instead of that, what we'll do that we'll try to discuss use case first, and then we'll understand what is Lambda, how can you position the Lambda with that particular case studies. Okay. So if customer they want to have some of the functions. Okay, it's so by the way, Lambda is a more about the development, side. It's not in the infrastructure side. It's more about the development side. But we need to know, as an architect, you need to know the purpose of Lambda. So the use case is something like that. So customer wants to use some of the functions so that these functions will run for certain purpose. Okay, and they also need a very low cost way to run the function, because typically the developers, if they would like to, if they want to create any functions, they need a platform, right? Some of the computing where that particular functions will run. They need a runtime environment, where they have to write their code, and then this runtime will run, and the code will run, and then certain functions to be executed. That's the typical way developers they do. So if the same thing developer want to achieve in AWS, so the service name is AWS Lambda. So it's a serverless options, okay? And I can tell you the Lambda is so popular. I spoke to many customers, and one of the customers, they don't like AWS very much. Okay, he's a kind of Microsoft guy. Okay, but he also told me sometime back, like, okay, Rebuji, if I don't like anything about AWS, any service I don't like, for an example, but I like only one service called Lambda because it's very powerful. Okay, and it's very cost effective solutions. So the first is run the code without thinking about the servers or cluster. So that's why it is a serverless service. So our journey starts with the serverless. Yeah. Some of the pending topics still there I can see, which is something from the RDS. That day I said the PITR is still not there, and maybe some of the portions is still there in Dynamo. But okay, I will cover it up. But let's start with Lambda and how you can deploy the code in the Lambda, something we'll discuss today. Before I get into the all of the configuration setup process, one thing before I forget, for each and every services that we are discussing, just try to learn this FAQ. FAQ is very boring, is a very overwhelmed, exhaustive, kind of activity. But I'm not saying that you need to learn and remember each and every lines about this FAQ for each and every services. It is not possible. But at least just go through, some of the, let's say you all know what is Lambda after this class. Probably you can skip this part. So wherever, if you scroll down and if you see something caught your eyes, then you stop, and then probably you have to just read between the lines. Don't need to remember. Only read between the lines. It will help you in the long run, because your brain is so efficient. Whenever this kind of situation come, then your brain will help you. Okay, this is the Lambda, there, and probably you can position the Lambda even for the exam perspective. So FAQ is a strong thing that I would recommend, even AWS recommends, so that you should go for the FAQ for each and every services. Yes, some of the options you don't understand because it's not part of the syllabus, because probably something will come from the specialty or AWS Solutions Architect professional course. But okay, if you still want to know something from me, I'm happy to help. But this is how at least you should go through the FAQ sections. Okay, now let's go back. So if you click on this options, and if you just scroll down under compute, you will see Lambda. Though it's a development, but it is a compute service. And right there, you can see run code without thinking about servers. Click on that, or probably you can also search from here. Same thing. Click on this. And the Lambda dashboard, you see something like that, and list of the functions. So it is not dashboard, actually, it's a list of functions. If you go to dashboard, you will see how many functions I have created, how many storage those functions are consuming. These are all of the different options, errors, invocations, something. So Lambda is a region-centric service. You can see them. And then create the functions. So just create function. There are a couple of options, right? Author from scratch. That means you need to create your code from scratch. Okay. Use a blueprint. Some of the sample, template is there. Let's say hello world functions, or maybe if you want to create the microservices that interact with DynamoDB table, or get a S3 object functions. How can you get the object from the S3 using Lambda? So these are all different, sample blueprints are available. Okay. And the list is very long. Some of the automation stuff, like, if you want to send CloudWatch log to Sumology, third-party tool, or maybe if you scroll up, if you see that more like book a trip with legs, so many. So now what we'll do that we'll start from scratch. Okay. And let me give it a name like my functions. So if I just go back and I'll show you some of the sample code that I have. What is the code all about? I'll also try to explain. So, but I just want to copy the code for your understanding how exactly it works. So just copying from one of my existing Lambda functions and now create the functions again. Okay. Okay. Give it a name like batch 168. So runtime means the language. So if you are the Node.js guy, or if you are the Python guy, or if you are the .NET, so probably you need to choose your language accordingly. So let's say I'll choose Python, the latest version 3.13, and the architecture, it supports x86, 64, ARM64. That means if you choose that your code will get compiled for the x86 64 architecture, and ARM64 is another kind of architecture. Also, you can do that if you like to compile your code in the ARM architecture. Okay, but it's a very popular though, the first one, x86 64. We'll discuss permission. We'll discuss some of the other options. If you scroll down, you will see there are many other additional configurations there. Okay. We'll discuss, let's say if you enable the VPC, so connect your functions to a VPC, okay, access privately. So that means your Lambda, it is not publicly exposed. It is something like to a particular VPC to access private resource during invocation. So it's kind of internal, connectivity between your VPC and the Lambda. And there's a lot of info sections there. That's a good part of AWS. If you are a layman, if you don't know anything about that, at least it will give you some of the understanding. Let's say if I just click on the info page, this saying, okay, this info about the enable code signing option is say use code signing configuration to enable code signing for a functions. With code signing, you can ensure that the code has been signed by approved source, has not been altered since sign. It's kind of more authentications. Okay. If you're a developer, they need some kind of, better signing and authentications process, then they would go for the code signing and then tags and all stuff. So this is there. And we'll discuss about the permissions and etc. Right now, I'm just going to create the function straight away. Okay, it's still getting created. Okay. So once the functions has been created, this is a blank code. Okay, it's a sample code. It is there. However, so this is only the sample code. But you remember that I've copied from one of my functions. If I just put it here or paste it here, so this is a Python code, and you can see import Boto3. It's a dependency. It's not a programming class, but something you need to understand that if you are running any Python programming and Node.js or different language, for each and every language, you need to install their dependencies, right? Their libraries, basically. The Boto,
Like the headers. Yeah, library files, header files. Yeah.
correct. It's a header of libraries, right? So all of the code dependency, it will get first, imported, and then your actual code will run or execute. Otherwise, it will throw you somewhere. So these particular small functions, it is more about to stop a EC2 server or multiple EC2 servers. One thing is very important here, that since Lambda is a region-centric service, correct? So here, this region is very important. You have to properly choose. Otherwise, it will not work. Here is a different region. I'm in the Mumbai, but it is showing US West one because I copied from some other, function. So all you need to do, and in these region sections, is a kind of a variable, right? Region equals to, so you have to just doing the mapping that your region is equals to Asia Pacific Mumbai. And this is something AP South one, if you just see from the URL, you may copy from here as well. I mean, it is the easiest way, or you can also copy from here, no problem, from here. So I already copied and then paste it over here. And now it is saying that instances, how many instances you are going to stop. Okay. This is the, again, this is the actual function that we dev lambda handler. And then this is the EC2 dot stop instance. There's a method I'm calling, okay, to stop the two servers. And there's a print. Print means the print command that, okay, whether your machine is stopped or not, it's kind of your a kind of notifications or kind of print in the programming. Okay, output results. So it will not work because these two instances are not there. So what I'll do, I'll just open in another tab and try to turn on EC2 instances. Let's see first if I have any EC2 instances, yes or no. And then we'll see. So what I'll do, let's say these two machines, two EC2 instances, I need to turn on because we want to do a little testing whether it's working or not. Okay. Let me start. It's now starting. And now instance ID, you see the first instance ID is this. Just let me copy and go and replace this. Oh, okay, I have to do. Problem. So in programming, this concept called array. I don't know whether you know or not. So array means in the array third bracket, you can have multiple values with the comma. So that is something called array in the programming. And now here another EC2 ID. Okay. So I've just copied two EC2 instance ID and then otherwise looks okay. So now if you scroll down, you see there's an option called deploy. So now I'm going to deploy my functions. Just deploy. Successfully updated. So now if I run this functions, it will give you an error. Okay. So let's see if I just go and test and just type test. It's a kind of testing that I'm doing and just run test. you see some of the red means it is not good, and this error occurred because you are not authorized to perform these operations. That means some of the authorizations issue, so that my Lambda is not properly executing. Yes or no? Yes. Something really not good, correct? So now
Yes.
what you need, yes, what you need to do. So,
Permission.
sorry, tell
No,
me.
I said permissions maybe.
Permissions maybe. No, not maybe. It is the permission issue. You are right. So just go to configurations options. You see these configurations, click on that. And then you see there's an option called permissions. Click on this, and here that is the role name. So in the IAM, do we have the IAM class or not yet? IAM
We had.
we
We
had.
had.
Yeah. So if you remember in the IAM role name, we discussed that role is some kind of one service communicates to another service, right? So maybe that particular role, which is the Lambda role, doesn't have any permission to call EC2, because what is happening? This function is calling EC2, correct? And try to stop those EC2 instances, so that Lambda and EC2, those are two different services, correct? So that means this role does have some permission issue, so that it is not calling EC2 instance. As simple as that. So just click on that role, and it will take me to the IAM role sections. And I need to give a permission so that my Lambda can talk to EC2. All I need to do, add permissions here, right hand side. Just click on this, attach policies. From here, EC2. And let me give a EC2 full access and save it or add. So now this roles does have the EC2 full access functions. Go back and try again and test again. My test, whatever. And then if I now test, let's see. Now it turns green. And if I go back to EC2 instance, just refresh. And you see, these two servers are now stopped. So this is a very easy, one of very easiest, Lambda functions I am showing you. But it can be very, very complex. If you are the developers, you can do a lot of things with this Lambda. And I can tell you as I said, the power of Lambda is immense. Okay. So now you see the Lambda is calling EC2 and executing this piece of code to stop our instances. 2 instances, 3 instances, 4 instances, or you can also start the instances, delete the instances. All you can do by using this Lambda. Okay, so that is the good use case, a small code, but good use case. Let's say if your customer, they want to stop the EC2 instances at every night. Okay, maybe these are their development servers or test servers. Okay, at night, who works, right? Unless until there's a significant or maybe major critical things. So normal day, usually people, they don't work at night. So that probably they want to save some money. So if you stop your EC2 instance, then you don't need to pay, isn't it? So probably you can use this Lambda so that every night, on a particular time, the Lambda will trigger and then it will get stopped. How can you do that? There's an option called, event rules. When you discuss CloudWatch, then we'll discuss the kind of event rules by which you can automatically schedule the functions. Okay. So now what next? So far is okay, guys? Clear? How can you create the Lambda?
But the use case you told that we can, how do we, there is an option to schedule, right?
Yes.
Lambda.
Yeah. So there's, as I said, there's a CloudWatch, there's an event rule. There's a CloudWatch service that we have not learned yet. There's an option called event rule. Okay, in the CloudWatch. From the rule sections, you can schedule it, something like that. Just wanted to show you something. Okay, let me go to CloudWatch. We have not discussed yet. We will, since you asked this question. CloudWatch. CloudWatch is a monitoring service, by the way, in AWS. Just like, Sumology, there's a lot of Datadog and probably a part, right? Maybe there's a lot of third-party tools there in the market, Javix, etc. So you can see there's an option called rules or event rules. If you just go rules, EventBridge, and all you need to create a rule. I'll not do that, but I'll just show you. You have to schedule, when that particular, let's say my rule. If you click, and all you need to do that, you have to select a particular time. Okay, let's say every day, or maybe recurring schedule every day, 5:30 p.m., something like that. Or maybe I have to put a lot of cron, etc. But quickly, if I just do one, just try to show you, how exactly it works. Maybe from today, 30. And now you see that all you need to choose the Lambda and select your Lambda code from here, which is our case. What's the Lambda? Or maybe batch one.
Batch 168.
Batch 1.
And all you need to next to finish. So that means that particular time, whatever the time you scheduled here, so on the particular time, that Lambda will trigger automatically and it will stop, start, whatever you do. Make sense? Okay. So now go to functions and our batch 168. Now let's discuss some of the things. Here, if you see, there are a lot of options, right? Let's say upload from. So if you are a developer and let's say you have already written a code, okay? So what you can do that you can upload your code. First, you need to zip your code and upload your zip file. I don't have any, but you understand. So whatever the zip file, let's say you are the developer, you upload and then the same, code will get populated here. That's the one way of using your code and just upload it. You don't need to write here from this one. You can create your code in your own laptop, own environment, development environment. You upload it, or you can also upload Amazon S3 so that you can also execute the code from Amazon S3 locations. Okay. Whatever you think it will be convenient for you. That is the one way. Then if you scroll down, this is all about the informations, like your runtime informations, your code properties, whether it's encrypted or not, etc. But there is certain areas. Okay, test we have discussed. Monitor. So monitoring, it's okay, but one thing you need to remember, the Lambda is not designed for a very long or complex code or function. So because the Lambda will not work, the one Lambda functions will not run more than 15 minutes. Please remember this. So the Lambda will get timed out after 15 minutes. Okay, so there are a lot of use case customer, they say, oh, my Lambda after 15 minutes it stopped working, what's wrong, etc. So that's a kind of AWS as on today limit. Okay, you cannot run Lambda more than 15 minutes. So that if you have very big functions, okay, so what you can do, you can split the functions into multiple Lambda. So that is something called step functions. So that means if one Lambda completed, then another Lambda will get executed, and another Lambda will get executed, and so on and so forth. So that is a kind of chain. So in AWS, if you want to achieve this kind of big function split into multiple function Lambda, that is something called step functions. Okay, it's kind of step functions. Okay, just remember those things, those step functions. But I can tell you that if you're a developer, they really need to have a very complex code. So Lambda is not a good use case. So Lambda is a kind of small functions that could be a fantastic candidate for your developers, but it is not designed for your very complex long running codes. Okay, maybe your
Like Dada, if I
Hmm,
try to relate, it's something like we set some jobs in our cron tab for
absolutely.
Linux and say, so those kind of jobs are there.
If you are the database guy, so you can actually, or your developer, or maybe the database developer or SQL developer, they actually can use the Lambda for your function, store, not store prop, it's a functions and job here, so that you can integrate your Lambda with with your database as well. So there's a lot of blocks there. If you just type like AWS Lambda functions for database, so probably using Lambda with Amazon RDS. So there's a lot of good use cases. Okay, you can, so you use the Lambda so that you can integrate the Amazon RDS as well, so that you can create your functions. There's a lot of good documentations there. Probably if you just type AWS block, oh, AWS block, yeah, AWS Lambda with database block. Yes. So trigger an AWS Lambda function from Amazon RDS or MySQL or Amazon RDS, MariaDB, audit logs, Amazon. So a lot of use case you just go through and you understand that how you can integrate Lambda with your databases and other stuff. Okay? I'm just showing you. It's not something that you need to remember.
But, but
Hmm. So now in these monitor sections, it's pretty straightforward, right? The CloudWatch metrics, like how many errors, how many invocations, how many throttling. So what is throttling? If I ask questions to everybody, what is throttles? Any idea what is throttles? Have you ever seen this term? Even network telecom guy, probably they have heard this term, right? Throttle or no? No. So throttle means after some time, your service will get throttled or paused. Okay. So if there are 100 millions of traffic is coming, then so that what happened, that probably every service they have certain limitations, isn't it? So if so many requests are coming, then is a tendency of AWS service to throttle, or Lambda will throttle. That means it will pause, or it will not take any more new requests. It's overwhelmed. So if you just go and just click on this information tab, you see that. So the number of invocation requests that are throttled when all of function instances are processing requests and no concurrency is available to scale up. That means there's an option called concurrency. Okay, concurrently it will scale, because if Lambda is also a scalable solution, right? It's a serverless. But if there's a no concurrency, there's a no room in plain English to scale up. So then Lambda rejects the additional request with a too many request exceptions error. Okay, so this is something concept called it throttling. All right. So here you can see throttle. You can also do a manual throttle as well. Go to configuration section. So this is something we have discussed the role, but if you just go click on the general configurations, this is something important. Memory and ephemeral storage. So if your customer, they have started complaining like, after some time, my functions is not faster, or it is something very performance wise is not very good. Okay, something really wrong in Lambda. So if that is the situation, the first thing to start as a troubleshooting mechanism, guys, you need to check whether your memory is exhausted or not. And you'll see in the monitoring sections, but then you need to edit and increase your memory, because there's a very common problem that if your memory is not sufficient to run a very, very memory consumed functions. Okay, so you can increase the memory up to 10 GB, 10,240. Similarly, some of the functions they need some of the temporary storage, like some of the sorting operations, okay, aggregations. For those kind of functions, you might have a good amount of local storage or ephemeral storage. Okay, the ephemeral storage, so that you can also increase the ephemeral storage as well. Just give me a second. Because you take note, I also take note in my own way, so that I can refer to my ephemeral. I didn't discuss in EC2. So I need to discuss ephemeral for EC2, then PITR for RTS. What's pending? That's good. Okay. So ephemeral as a kind of temporary storage. So if you stop and start, okay, your compute, then all of the data will get lost. Okay, it's kind of temporary storage. Even in the EC2, when you discuss EC2, I didn't discuss that. So if there's an EC2 instance, you have a kind of ephemeral storage. They call it instance store. What is that? Instance store. So instance store is a very kind of common, kind of local storage. It is not a persistent in nature. I'm talking about EC2, not Lambda. Okay. So if you save something here or store something here, if you stop and start the server, all of the data will get vanished. So it is not designed for the persistent store. It's kind of temporary store to process something temporary. Okay, so that it will be very faster, process everything, right? In the databases, we use a lot of temporary thing, right? Even for some of the code, we need to have lot of temporary processing. So instance store or ephemeral storage, the same name, is only for the temporary purpose. If you stop and start, then so don't put any important data on the instance store. Now you understand why. Always you have to store in the EBS volume, and that you have learned, right? So that it will be safe. So something you need to think of. Makes sense. So this is something here, and timeout. You see that you can also if your developer, they want to do a kind of timeout. This is not your job. That means your developer, they have to do the timeout settings, etc. and set it. So this is the sections called configurations, and then if you go for triggers means if something happened, then what? Okay, if something happens, then what? That means if something will happen, then your Lambda will get triggered. So let's see if I can show you something. I don't know. Let me do right now a kind of little experiment. Let me instance state, start the instance. I've seen, I'm not complaining. I'm sharing my thoughts with you guys. I've seen that AWS solutions architect course people, they have completed in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know how they are doing magic or thing, because maybe, but if we don't understand inside out, then there's a lot of gaps, right? That's something we need to really understand, right? Anyways, uh, let's take some time. Okay, now what I'll do, the same Lambda that we have, correct? Which will stop my servers, right? So now we have learned S3. correct? We have already done. So S3. What is S3, Prabhat? I did. Or the other solution. What is S3?
S3 is a storage bucket.
Hmm. Okay. And what sort of objects, what sort of data you stored there? Okay, meanwhile, I can go to any. What sort of objects we stored there?
We can store object oriented storage, like we can store some, I mean, what's any sort of what is the exact name I should tell? I mean, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Ricky can help you. Ricky, what sort of
Yes, sir.
objects are stored there?
We can store anything in S3.
Correct. Anything. That's a smart approach. Anything, any objects. Okay, do you see that I have created a batch 168 AWS S3 batch couple of days back, and there's an option called properties, and we've learned that there's an option called event notifications, right? So now go and create the event notifications. And here, give it a name like my event. I'm just trying to show you the trigger options, trigger thing. Let's say if I upload something, okay, in the S3 bucket, then my Lambda will get executed. As simple as that. Okay. That's why I just selected the put and post is the event types. And if I scroll down, you see there's an option called enter the Lambda functions ARN. That means you need to choose the ARN of the Lambda. So if I just go to my Lambda and copy the ARN, you see that? Copy the ARN. Okay. Oh, okay, that's a problem because it should be in the same region. I have Mumbai, but I'll do that. I'll create a quick buckets, or maybe I can find out the Mumbai bucket. This one also Mumbai, this one also Mumbai. Let me put say if I have small bucket, this out now. Let's say bucket something Ravi. It is in Mumbai. Go to permission. Sorry, properties, event notifications. My event, put and post, Lambda, and batch 168. That's our Lambda function's name. Right. Save changes. So if you go to EC2 instances, still you see these servers are running. So now, if I just upload anything in that bucket, okay, anything. Let's say my credit card payment, Kotak payment, receipt, and then upload. So this has been uploaded, but now if I go and see, that means now I have integrated my S3 with Lambda. So S3 was a trigger, right? Because I uploaded something, then Lambda got to know something uploaded in the S3, and the Lambda functions triggered, and then my EC2 got stopped. So now that's how you can integrate in AWS different services with different, okay, and now if I just refresh it, you see that S3 is my now trigger because it is going to trigger, then this Lambda will get executed. You can add many triggers, just like Alexa. Okay. Hey Alexa, something like that. Then API gateway, then port comment. So there are a lot of third-party non-AWS product you can integrate with, like auth. Then if you scroll down, there's a lot of Datadog, Freshworks, Gladly, MongoDB, New Relic. So you can integrate with the Lambda. So this is the trigger, this is Lambda, and then the destinations. So destinations, that means if the Lambda triggers, then what next? So that is some kind of chain you can also do. Let's say um, you want to invoke another Lambda function. I just tried to say, discuss that point of time. There's a kind of step functions. Like, if this Lambda happens, then what next? Maybe there's another Lambda will happen. And that Lambda will happen, then another Lambda. Okay. So that's kind of invocations that you can do, asynchronous invocations that can be possible. And then it's a condition that if is success, then the next Lambda will happen. If this is failure, maybe then S3 bucket or some of the SQS queues, another service will get to. So that is some kind of condition that your developer, they will do. So you can also integrate with the destinations as well. Okay. All right. So now, if I go to configurations, so this is triggers, permissions. We have discussed destinations. You can add destinations over here. And if you, if you're a developer, they would like to do an environment variable. So these are not something for you. It's completely developer. You can integrate the RDS database, as I already discussed the RDS database with SAT. You can also, integrate Lambda and the state machines. So this is one way of doing Lambda. And another thing, like, you can have a multiple versions. So what is versions? We discussed in S3 that you can have the same kind of versions here or create different versions for Lambda. Let's say this code that I've created, okay, by default, Lambda always stores in the latest versions, okay? You can create your own version as well. Let's say if I just go and publish new versions, you see there's everything by default is a dollar latest version. But if you can create version 1, something like that, then your developers, they can, if they want to change something, okay, and then they want to test in the version 1, and then probably they will put in the latest, then something they can do, then all of the new code will get changed or published in the version 1. That is something they also can choose. Okay, I think typically this is something you need to know as an architect. You can also integrate with the file systems. I think that's okay. Provision concurrency, this is something little important, only for your understanding. So provision concurrency, if you go to edit options, okay, the first you need to check to enable your function to scale without functions latency. So if your customer, they need a very faster functions to perform, okay, they don't like, let's say, any kind of fluctuations in latency, etc., then you can have the concurrency, or you can use the provision concurrency. That means it can automatically scale or adjust your provision concurrency to maintain your target utilization. So let's say 900 is maximum, let's say 500, but it will cost you additional money. But yes, but if you don't want to compromise with any kind of fluctuation or latency, then you have to increase your provision concurrency so that it will auto scale. So that is something will come up in your exam. Okay, like what is provision concurrency thing?
So here 500 is what? I mean, the unit.
Unit. So they have the different unit like 500, 900. It's not GB, not memory, etc. It's only the unit of their own measurement, their own unit.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's not important. So now here, if I go to, all right, let me, and okay. Okay, throttle. As I said that if you just go and throttle, you can do also manually. Let's say a lot of requests are coming, and then your management or you decided that okay, now let's pause it. Something really not going good. A lot of requests are coming, and Lambda will cost you per request. First few, I think 1 million is free. I'll double check now. But after that, you have to pay certain amount, very, very nominal, irrespective of the nominal cost. If it is coming millions or millions, then definitely is a significant money. You can confirm it so that it will not accept any further request. Okay. So it can do a manual throttle. So the price, if I go AWS or here also, I think AWS Lambda price. Price. Free tier. So in AWS, you can first check the free tier so that you'll have some of the understanding, at least how much is free for certain services. Okay, yes, 1 million free requests per month. So 1 million is huge. So that means many companies, they actually using Lambda as a completely free, right? So 1 million is way, way high, right? So that's why you can use Lambda almost in free, but it's after that, certain cost in the Lambda pricing if you go there. All right. Anything else? I'm just trying to think if any state machines, no. Functions, Lambda. Yes.
Rather, I'm getting a call from my office. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Okay, sure. So this is about the Lambda application is something that you can create the Lambda applications using Lambda. You kind of little uses that, if you want to do a CI/CD pipeline, we'll discuss later when you discuss serverless application using Lambda. These are all kind of blueprint also. So the entire, applications will be running using the Lambda. Okay, so that is something applications, but mostly as an architect, you need to know that where the Lambda can be used and in which situations. That is something for your understanding.